Hello everyone. Today we're going to discuss about the assessment in teaching writing. So as future teacher, we need to assess the student not just in reading but also in writing. So according to Thomson 28, that assessment is essential in the teaching learning process because it provides evidence of learning and inform the teachers on the course content. So as teacher, we must engage our student in writing. Because I've seen when I was in high school, pagtaas gani ag nasuwat na essay, perfect na dadyo ng score. How about those student na di mga agi? But they're really in a good way of directing the point. Direct in the point in skills, but they are not really good in points. So on the part of the student as teacher, so they would get to, we need to know our student more. So unsa may kanang pag mag-give ta og motivations when it comes in writing and even feedback, therefore it is one of assessing because we focus not only on outputs but also in writers. So today we're going to discuss, or as learners, we are going to focus on the outcomes. There are assessment in the context of teaching writing, purpose of writing assessment, how to assess writing, focus on a specific aspect or comprehending, agree on the list of written symbols, pair corrections and feedbacking, when to assess writing, how to grade written outputs. So today, aside from reading, we are going to discuss about the written outputs as future teacher. So, let's start. First, we're going to discuss about the assessment and context of teaching writing. There are three characteristics of assessment in teaching writing. In assessment in the context of teaching writing, we need to review, especially as future teachers, we need to review our understanding of writing as a product. So the number one is the product versus process. It says that it is a valid assessment of writing according to Miller and Kalfer. It says that top both product and process. So it says that product means looking into the student's ability and observe proper mechanism or mechanic, correct sentence constructions and cohesions and questions. Well, to assess writing as a product is to look into a writer's ability to produce written outputs that are audience. So both of them, the product and the process, are both of them, they are the capability to all students. So especially when we are going to engage them in writing, to avoid bias, we need to correct them aside from just like for an example in feedbacking, we need to use our symbols to correct them, not just symbols that are lining or symbols that are we need to circle, but also the symbols that some example symbols that SP, or we need to correct spelling or error. Formative evaluations, which means it monitors students' progress and it's often formal and qualitative. So in the field of writing, especially in a writing class, the teacher might use formative assessment through activities just like self-reflections or even small writing. So by this, they allowing them to provide immediately feedback to our students. While the summative, it says that it is an often a challenge for a teacher to handle heterogeneous classes with different background and capabilities. So in summative, when it comes in writing classes, the teacher must or could be a form of a final exam, some example of it, where the teachers evaluate the students' overall writing abilities. Assessment versus testing, it says that assessment is a more favorable than testing because it takes into account on the context of the learners and find ways for helping them forward, while the testing is associated with the traditions, just like multiple choice type or gauging the learner's level competencies or competence. So assessment versus testing, in a writing class, the teachers assess could involve a combinations of techniques such as written assignments, presentations, or group project and class participation. Those are an example of assessment and testing. Next, we are going to the purpose of writing assessment. Mas naman mo yung purpose when it comes in writing assessment? According to Calfee and Mahler, we have established in a previous lessons that written can be effective tool for learning. So, their advice, or here are accordingly the following reasons offered by Tomskin. Number 1 is reflect the student's growth as a writer. So as teachers, or especially as a future teachers, we are not just focused on reading in our students but also in writing. We all do know that our students is not really good in writing, especially they have different remedial instructions na logic kakuwangan sa atong estudyante. So as future teachers, we need to grow them as a writer. And also the second, inform students and parents about students' achievement. So mas gana mga jud i-share na to dili ra mas estudyante ang ato ang mga ilahang mga needs or to inform their needs but also the parents. The third is guide writing instructions. The fourth, substantiate the grade level standards met by the learners. So also, when it comes in writing or in teaching writing, dapat by level. Di na lamang kay, ay, pang elementary, kay pa ni sila kahibaw. Dapat suit when it comes in teaching. The last but not the least is they evaluate the effectiveness of the instructions program. By this, we need to participate not just also the student but also as teacher. Is that how to assess writing? So, writing is a process of recursive and such as assessment is best done in every stages of the process. So, according to Clark, feedbacking is a monitoring dialogue that helps the learner's repeated attempt to be articulate, marking of pupils' written works should be positive, encouraging, and indicative of future steps. So, in correcting students' errors, we need to make them understand implications of their mistakes and balance, and with feedbacking on the positive achievement of the piece. So, when it comes in writing, especially just like for example in a program, or even a point program, an essay, something like that, we need gajud i-correct ang atong students. By that, they learn their mistakes and they avoid errors, and also by this, they learn what are those mistakes, and by that, in the future, they might be bring of what they learned. So, according to Wigley, 2015, there are some classified types of feedbacks that we can offer to our students writers. The number one is written comments. This is the most commonly used feedback mechanism where teachers write their corrections either on the text using symbols for editing and indicate comments on the margins of the student's paper. Why? Ngano importante man yung written comments when it comes in writing or in the field of writing. So by this, it is very helpful in correcting the spot the errors comment by the learners para ma-engage or makahibaw sila kung sa degadyo'y sakto. Next is the individual conference. This type of feedbacking is useful for process writing. So this conference is usually focused on the student's ability to comply with the given task or etc. Just like choosing the topic, narrowing the focus, ensuring that they develop idea supports to the topic. Which means this requires the student's ability to listen and take note of the comments in their writing journals, otherwise they might not be given or feedbacking correctly. Next is the recorded feedback. This is an alternative conferencing, especially if the class is big. So as future teacher will check the outcomes and audio records her comments to the students for the students to listen and follow. And also there are other assessment strategies that may work in the written or writing classrooms. Just like for an example, according to Tom Skin, there are observation. So observation can be used in monitoring the teacher's writing habits. By this, they can be interactions with peers during collaboration or peer writing activity. Next is collections of writing samples. It can be done by the teachers or the students. However, it could be best if the learners themselves collected their written outputs in their portfolio. Is anecdotal records. Note down the teacher's comments on what they have observed or read from the students' outputs as evidence of the learnings. And also the last, the checklist. For the students and teachers to assess if the outputs have responded to given prompt or defined objectives. So to employ strategies that could lighten the arduous task of assessment writing, some of these are: number one, focus on a specific aspect or competence. According to Harmer 1998, these strategies that adheres to the principles of less is more requires the teachers to orient the students on the target competences that the writing program or activity aims to achieve. While the teachers and the students can agree to focus on vocabulary, spelling, and mechanics or the subject-verb agreement on the next. These are: number one, focus on a specific aspect or competence. According to Harmer 1998, these strategies that adheres to the principles of less is more requires the teachers to orient the students on the target competences that the writing program or activity aims to achieve. While the teachers and the students can agree to focus on vocabulary, spelling, and mechanics or the subject-verb agreement on the next. You may also introduce this providing symbols for advanced learning, especially for our students. So these providing marks are also an example of correcting. So just like for an example, this kind of marks. Peer corrections or feedback. So these strategies is not only time efficient but promotive as well of the self-regulations in writing. Because of this, when it comes in feedbacking, it avoid bias. Kay kasagaran mga estudyante mangutan ng ma'am, ngano man ni ma'am, ngano man ni ahong tuan, scores, when it comes in writing, gamay man. So to avoid this kind of error, so we need to apply the peer corrections. It means that the actions that the writer uses is to attain literary goals, which mean by this there might be improved the writing skills when it comes in a field of error, in a field of correction. They utilize technology. It says that the word professors or processors are already equipped with editing features that can help in publishing the text in terms of grammar, structures, and mechanisms, because some schools have software like Tornimitten and Grammarly that can detect not only linguistic errors but also plagiarized text. So by this, the teachers can also be encourage learners to use these technologies. So when to assess writing? So writing as assessment is ideally paired with instructions so teachers do not stock written outputs for wholesale checking. So when we assess writing, it is really timely feedbacking. So not only for the teachers but also it is very important for the learners, because it allows them to reflect on the mistakes that they can be avoided, ask for clarifications on the comments given, or solicits the questions for improvement. So how to guide reading our outputs? So grading students' outputs depends on the type of assessment is given. So if the testings the learner's linguistic competence, then the grades can be taken from the actual scores. Just like for an example, when we do our quizzes, what else? Exams, when we do our reflections. So it is really an actual scores. Makita nyo dyan makita nyo sa mga estudyante ilang mga scores. But if the assessment is intended to monitor the student's progress in learning, the writing process, or the responding to the writing task, the teachers can use rubric to evaluate the learners of performance. So some example of assessment is intended is kanaang mag-report, and also when it comes in contest, just like some example of contest kanang journalism, or some example of it. So according to Calfee and Myler 2007, there are the following essential criteria for evaluating writing outputs. So dili ra day ta magtaka-taka o himo og output, especially as future teachers, kay basig koleksyonan ta sa itong estudyante. So what are those criteria for evaluating? So the number one is the idea. It says that it refers to the substance or the student's knowledge. So by this, we can command the topic chosen. So depende ra sa estudyante kung sa iyang i-choose na idea, or it's either ugana ba or di. The second is organizations. Is the student logical, organized, and used for the appropriate presentations? So this criteria is all about the student's progress or the student's performance. So, og na-organize ba sa organization, nabadira ang exposition, cause effects, or problem solutions. So next is voice. Means that even if the students may not have researched some of the ideas used in writing, they still manage the surface their point of view. So next is the sentence fluency. is the writer's competence in observing lexical and syntactical structures. Conventions refers to the student's mastery of grammar, spellings, mechanism. Next is presentations, refer to an overall styles of the writer. So all of the rubric is all about the students or the writer or the one they rate. So there are some examples of rubric. There are holistic and also a trait or trait rubrics. And now I'm going to show you the example of holistic rubric. So as you observe, there are target competency, above average, sufficient, developing, needs improvement. So those are an example of holistic development. So ang holistic development is it talks about or it the audience. About with the audience or giunsa man ni pag written about sa audience, how they identify the purpose sa audience. So the audience ba is easily identify or able to focus, or the audience ba is can easily identify, or the audience ba or cannot be clearly identify. So holistic is all about the audience when it comes in writing or when it comes in rubric. So the first one rubric we've discussed is all about the writing sa media, pagsuwat or pag manage. But when it comes in holistic, kumbaga mag-critique, dili lamang ang estudyante but also dapat i-minimize niya na dapat na ay nag-audience sa ija. While the traits or analytic rubrics games and metrics from the criteria listed on the first column. So, ang trait or analytic rubric by column siya, which means naa dito ang content of the paper, written styles, format, conference on citations. So, which means nag-prepare siya about sa assessment in student research paper. Nag-deals o unsay mga gipang written about it or unsay gi-perform or descriptions assigned from the point of the writer that they choose.